So I just saw Halloween Kills and...
You didn't see him?
Take a deep breath. Who?
The boogeyman. What?
Halloween is back, and this time it's bringing... some old familiar faces and plenty of references to the original for fans to get excited about.
There's a dead dog in here.
What?
Remember Tommy? Remember Lindsay? Remember Halloween 3? Everyone hated that one until a few years ago. Remember that nurse? Remember Lonnie? No? He was that kid that Donald Pleasance scared off in the original movie? He's a main character now. Speaking of Loomis, he's back too. So this movie takes place immediately after Halloween 2018. Michael escapes from Laurie's trap, and if
you can believe it,
he kills. Again. A bumbling mob is then formed in a desperate attempt to stop Michael, or to offer up more easy kills for him. I'm not really sure which they were going for. This movie is again directed by David Gordon Green, and is produced by cash grab god Jason Blum of Blumhouse. Together, they're also developing a reboot of one of my favorite horror movies of all time, The Exorcist, as well as a Hellraiser TV show. On the one hand, I'm excited to see things I know coming back. On the other hand, I kinda just wish things would be left alone. The original Halloween is another one of my favorite horror movies, and growing up, I was a fan of the series for the most part. Things got kinda lame from 5 on, but I still enjoyed all the movies on some level. I liked Halloween 3 a lot, and it was cute to see it referenced in this movie, though Michael did kind of desecrate it. All that to say, I was pretty excited for this one. So, was the year-long wait worth it? Well, in order to tell you, I'm going to have to warn you first about... So the short answer is no, not really. If I had to sum up this movie in one word, it would be frustrating. This is one of those horror movies that will have you yelling at the screen. Michael is trying to break into the car? Better shoot out the windows to make it easier for him. Heard a bump upstairs? Well, there's a killer on the loose in our small town, and we're living in his former house, so better go investigate. The characters in this movie are all wildly idiotic, even by horror movie standards. And when Tommy forms his Michael Myers Defense Force, things get increasingly stupid. If that angry Haddonfield mob plot point feels familiar, it's because we've seen it before in Halloween 4. It even plays out in a similar way here, with the mob getting out of hand and mistakenly killing an innocent person. In this movie, it's beyond parody though. These people are practically foaming at the mouth after a quick speech from Tommy, and they end up forcing this mental patient to commit suicide. Only then, when his brains are spilled across the pavement, does the mob realize, oh shit, wait, hey, isn't Michael like 7 feet tall and all menacing and shit? Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, he's not a little hunched over fat guy at all. Oh shit. Our bad, dude. The chaotic scenes at the hospital were so ridiculous, I couldn't really get into the movie. It wasn't ridiculous in a fun way, if that makes sense. It was just kind of stupid. The 2018 Halloween wasn't perfect by any means, but narratively, it was mostly solid, especially compared to this. It also took its time with the kills and had a lot more build-up and suspense put into them. In this movie, the body count is higher, but there's little to no attempt at building up the suspense at all. The kills just kind of happen, and then keep happening. Michael takes on gangs of people at a time. Michael Myers looks cool as he brutally murders them. He tilts his head a few times. That's so cool. I like that stuff just fine, but only when it's treated like icing on a cake. And this movie is just icing. And by the time you get to the end, you're able to predict everything that's going to happen in the third act.
She's gonna go up to that window, look out, and see Michael Myers, and that's how it's gonna end. With her screaming.
He's gonna see her reflection, he's gonna be behind her somehow, he got in the house. Every trope is on full display here, and I never really got the feeling that any of these kills were actually meant to be scary. It felt like a by-the-numbers gore fest, but if that's your thing, then you'll probably have fun with it at least. I was interested in seeing the continuation of Laurie's story, but that stuff ended up just being absolutely terrible. What little we got of it anyway. We don't spend as much time with our 3 lead characters in this movie, and instead we spend most of the movie with Meal Team 6 over here. It's probably the most blunt aspect of the movie next to the kills. Much like the firefighter who tried to fight Michael with a hose, these angry mob characters are all cartoonish and stupid. A lot of these side characters have quirks and comedic dialogue, just like the 2018 film, but here I think they leaned into it way too much, and it just made the scenes feel off for me. And since things felt so tropey and predictable, you're able to guess everything that's going to happen with every scene. There's really no suspense to be found, which for me is my favorite part of the original Halloween. And I found myself missing that balance of comedy and tension that the 2018 movie had. It was a real crowd pleaser in that way. But I think all this one has going for it really are the kills. I imagine for some that will be enough. There are a few kills in this that had some pretty fun effects, but a lot of them were just your standard "and then he stabs them" that we've seen 1,000 times before. So I don't know. I couldn't really say I was impressed with this one. Everything was pretty well shot though. This is a pretty movie to look at most of the time, but I just never could really settle into it. So do I recommend Halloween Kills? Well, if you've got Peacock or want to wait for it to be on HBO later, then sure, you might as well watch it. But overall, no, I can't say I really like this one that much, which sucks because I really wanted to. Overall, I felt like this Halloween was just another by-the-numbers sequel, complete with hammy dialogue and acting. In fact, I'm actually not convinced that this guy was an actor. It felt like a friend of the director or something.
And you started with your granddaddy, right?
Yeah, my grandpa started the business. And my grandpa picture of it. Yeah, I got my bed up here, Huckleberry. Oh, Huckleberry.
The movie jumps around a lot and has way too many storylines going on, following characters I just didn't care for. Information is spoon-fed to you non-stop, and it's just way too predictable for me to enjoy. I was hoping for it to continue in a new direction. Rather than further exploring that family and trauma stuff established in the first one, we get a pretty heavy-handed trauma mob that cartoonishly escalates into absolute chaos instead. The kills were pretty standard most of the time, with a few standouts that were extra brutal, but The references to other Halloween movies were nice and all, and you could tell some care was put into this movie for the fans, but it really just had me rolling my eyes more than anything. The best thing I can say about this movie is that the soundtrack from John Carpenter was really good. But we already knew that. Anyway, if you've seen it, I'd love to hear what you thought of it. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.